Welcome back, everyone. We've had an eventful morning so far, that's for sure, full of amazing discussions. So now we're moving from voice to messaging. So if you're in that space, that's the panel for you. I think we all agree messaging is evolving faster than ever with AI, RCS, new monetization models, and the business is being redefined for businesses and consumers alike. So if we look ahead into 2025 and beyond, what will bring growth? And that's what we're going to talk about today. To do that, I would like to welcome our moderator, Nick Millward, is consultant advisor at MEF. Nick, welcome.
Hi, Isabel. Hi, everybody.
Yes, so I will leave you the floor. The floor is yours, Nick.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Isabel. So hello, everybody. So I'm Nick Millward and your host for this session today. As Isabel said, I'm an advisor at MEF and I've held various leadership positions across the mobile landscape in enterprise and startups as well. So I've worked at companies such as Orange, Vodafone on the telco side. I've even spent some time with the Daily Mail, more recently Kalira, Liberate and others, but I won't go much more into myself. So I don't think the team can bring the panel on. I feel a little bit exposed here all on my own. I feel a little bit lonely. But just while we're doing that, just to say that we'll have around 30 minutes. And as Isabel said, we'll be exploring messaging in 2025. So we'll be looking a bit more into the future. We'll be talking about the rise of AI, RCS, next generation business models. So kind of touching on the commercials as well. I will just say as a housekeeping thing, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. And I will do my best to answer them as we go through this session. If we don't get time to do that, we will follow up afterwards. So I think I see everybody there. So we've got everybody. So first of all, I shall introduce Vladimir Smal, who is the CEO and co-founder of AVISO Messaging. So welcome, Vladimir.
Yeah, hello everyone.
We have Nick Lane, who is Chief Messaging Officer at Mobilesquared. And should I also say Kaleido as well, Nick? He's on mute, but I'm pretty sure that's about right.
There's always one, isn't there? Sorry. Well, we've merged, but the holding company's Saranta Holdings, but we're still trading as each other. So Mobilesquared's good. Thanks.
Right. Thank you, Nick. And we have Eishan Gupta, who is Director of SMS and Voice at Tata Communications. Hi and welcome, Eishan.
Hi, Nick. Hi, all. I hope you can hear me loud and clear.
I certainly can, and I'm sure the rest will be able to as well. And last but not least is Dave Boddington, who heads up Global Products at Infobip. Hi, Dave.
Yeah, hi, Nick, and hi, audience and rest of the panel. Good to meet you all again.
Great, thank you. So as I say, we've got around about 30 minutes. What I'll do is just let's keep this as open and as kind of fresh as possible, I suppose. And I'll probably come to you first, Eishan, just to kind of kick things off. So how do you see AI in particular transforming business messaging, etc., over the next 2 to 3 years? Obviously, it's a very hot topic with everybody in business and I think in our personal lives as well now. But I guess a little bit more. What are the use cases that you see gaining traction in this particular area?
Great, thanks, Nick. So to begin with, AI is reshaping industries. It is unlocking opportunities in interactive advertising and customer engagement. As technology is evolving, the end customer wants to be engaged more efficiently and innovatively. Customers are now looking conversations instead of simple one-way text. Thus, a rise of conversational AI, where AI is now helping organizations to make conversations more meaningful and effective, thereby driving the business better. So in my view, conversational AI is definitely on a rise, and one of the primary source for that is chatbots and AI enabled chatbots, wherein depending on customer behavior and preferences, they pick and choose the tailored solution for the organizations is something which is a key driving factor. So yeah, so first is, you add your channels and then build AI on top of those. So that's what my view on this is.
So Eishan, I've heard quite a lot about chatbots in the ecosystem relating to AI. Is there anything beyond that you've seen? Is there anything? I think you may have touched on it right at the beginning, relating to marketing or any other types of use cases, or is it still very much kind of chatbot type stuff?
No. So of course, the broad areas are, interactive advertising and then the customer engagement. So one of the module is chatbot, but yes, there are AI-enabled CPaaS solutions which are now helping customer engagement more innovatively. So yeah.
Okay, I know this is kind of a sweet spot for Tata Communications anyway. That's kind of an area I know pretty well. But Dave, I know Infobip are very strong on the world of AI as well. Is there anything you can add to that?
Yeah, no, that's right, Nick. I mean, certainly, at a kind of as a preface, as if we were to pick maybe two of the kind of key focus areas for us as a business as we move through 2025 into 2026, AI and RCS will be those two, which is kind of, so it's really kind of sweet spot for where we're looking strategically at the moment. I think there's an awful lot that AI can bring. I think when as with most things, right, we need to get a little bit over the hype cycle. So once we kind of separate the wheat from the chaff about where AI really adds value, and I think that's going to be the important point, where it really does add value into messaging. The AI and RCS really do go hand in hand, because what AI gives you is an awful lot of intelligence and capability. What RCS then gives you is the ability to express that and communicate it. So you can't, having one with the other, they really do kind of build on each other's capabilities. And it really does give us the opportunity to start to kind of humanize the interactions between consumers and businesses. And that then goes hand in hand with kind of moving kind of into conversation experience, as Eishan says absolutely rightly, and into actually shifting the conversation around price per message into value of message. And I think that becomes really interesting. I know I've got no doubt got points of view on that as well, obviously, as we talk about business models. So I think between the two of them, I think they work really, really closely, have the opportunity to work really, really closely together. So really kind of help to drive each other more forward at pace.
Great. So I think what we're kind of hearing is accuracy, cost, if I was to summarize this, and probably the thing that AI brings is speed as well. Without removing kind of the human element of a lot of what we do when we're introducing AI, it kind of speeds things up as well. So anything else to add on the AI piece before we move on from that? I think we could spend a whole session on this, but let's move on to another topic then, because we kind of, I think all of us in the ecosystem have talked for a very long time about the subject of RCS, but it seems very much as though it's kind of emerging even more now. And I'm seeing a lot of growth directly from Google on this as well, not just other players within the ecosystem. But if I can come to you, Vladimir, just asking what's your thoughts on RCS, kind of the key challenges and opportunities for brands looking at this, if we look at the kind of business market?
Well, yeah, I think that the opportunities are outweighed by far the challenges that RCS has right now for the brands. I mean, the obvious one is, of course, the reach, which is still limited. I mean, with the adoption of RCS technology by Apple, of course, it improved the reach significantly. But what we see right now is that the RCS is not growing as quickly as the industry would like it, to grow. Of course, reach is one of the challenges. Another challenge is that there is certain things to be done for the organization to actually implement the RCS on their backend and start using all the features that RCS provides. I mean, if we talk again about the reach, like when we talk about some, let's say, brand that is not present is just one market. For them, it might be a challenge because the RCS is not evolved in the same way across the markets, right? So there's certain countries where it is the thing already. There are certain markets where it is enabled, but it's hardly been seen by the consumers, and even consumers, they don't know how to deal with that market, with that channel, right? Another thing is that that for the consumer to be able to receive those messages, they should have a certain smartphone, they should have the internet access, and they should actually enable the RCS to receive the messages, which is still something which a lot of people wouldn't even know and wouldn't even care, right? So these are all the kind of obvious challenges that are there, but there's a lot to be done on that front. When it comes to opportunities, of course, all the rich media that RCS is offering, the better level of security, the channel that is actually verified already, right? And for the brand, it gives additional recognition, because in this channel, your consumer already sees your brand, your logo, information about your company, and then the engagement is far higher than with other messaging channels, right? As compared to SMS, for example. And the researchers show that the engagement rate is like 5-6 times higher for some marketing campaigns. So the opportunities, there's a lot of opportunities. They're quite obvious, but I think there's a lot to be done to actually educate the people, the market, on how to use it, so that it really starts to gain more and more traction. But it takes time.
Absolutely. I think when we look at this in certain countries where they've onboarded or recently onboarded or enabled RBM in particular, I think what they're seeing is the take up of that being on almost an exponential curve. So once things are lit up, once things are enabled, I think the take up is pretty staggering. But maybe Nick, you could give us a bit more insight into that. What's your views on where things are with RCS without going into all the weeds on it? What do you see happening at the moment in terms of where the opportunities are more so?
Right, I'm off mute. I think everyone knows the opportunities are massive. It's just, how do we get to that point? It's coming. It's how quickly we get there. We've been looking at RCS for over 10 years, and yet here we are. It's still yet $1 billion platform. It will happen. It's going to happen probably in the next couple of years. But I think it's going to need a trigger. So from our perspective, we think, I kind of mentioned it a few times, the World Cup in North America is probably going to be that trigger point, that where you've got the focus of the world in one region. You've got the football / soccer fans kind of just gripped for a month across, looking at activities across Canada, the US, Mexico. And if everything's in place, then it's going to really showcase the power that RCS is going to offer to brands and to consumers. The US is going to be probably, we expect it to be the leading market for RCS. Prior to COVID, it was Japan, and no one even mentions Japan anymore. It's almost kind of a forgotten RCS nation at the moment. But with the US, the fact that the 3 main carriers are all going to be launching, or the last one will be launching anytime now, they've all signed the agreement with Apple, which means that, the reach is going to more than double in terms of RCS. We don't have to worry about scale. That's not an issue anymore. In actual fact, even now, there are more RCS users than watch the Super Bowl. So if all the brands worry about getting some ad minutes in and around the Super Bowl, then you've got a similar size audience and an even more engaged audience in RCS. That's just in the US. So then you look at other markets, things are starting to happen. I think my only concern with RCS is why in some markets it's growing for the wrong reasons. It's migrating traffic from SMS to escape fraud or high prices. So the driving the kind of the initiation process to move over is fundamentally wrong. It's not really saying we need RCS because it's a much richer and more engaging platform from a brand perspective. It's because we're trying to escape something that's happening on the other channel. And the trouble is that what we're moving from one channel to the other is following. So it's not as if, there's the fraudsters, we're not playing hide and seek here. And just because all the traffic's moved onto RCS, the fraudsters are going to go, ooh, where have they gone? They're going to equally be looking at the opportunities in RCS, and they're going to follow where the money is. So when there's more money, RCS becomes a much more attractive platform. But no, I mean, in terms of opportunities, it's massive, but we've been saying it's massive for 10 years. But, we kind of think it needs a massive catalyst, and that'll probably be the World Cup next year. So I think all eggs in basket need to be ready for in about 12 months' time. And then hopefully, in 2 years' time, we're talking about how amazing RCS is and, kind of how much money brands are throwing at it.
So it's all about the football, by the sounds of it, then, from what you said. Let's just take the conversation a little bit further around the commercial side. So, there's a number of companies that are kind of looking at RCS relating to almost an alternative to something like advertising on Twitter or Instagram or some other social channel, or even some other more traditional marketing channel. It could be TV, it could be YouTube or something. So what are you guys, if anything, are you seeing in that area? The question, I suppose, is what business models are emerging now around RCS or rich messaging in general? Does anybody want to take that one?
I'll jump in as a starting point. I think because there's probably a few kind of facets to the question there, in terms of if you first look at where businesses are thinking about spending their money, maybe that's as a starting point. Certainly in reference to whether they're spending it on kind of social, above TV, etc. I mean, I think despite WhatsApp's position in terms of their marketing messages, and that there is a fundamental difference in many ways between the above the line of social and TV out of home, and the below the line of kind of opted in comms. So I think that whilst that line might blur a little bit, fundamentally RCS is a permission-based channel, and it has to be. So you have brands have these opted in consumers that they have a direct relationship and that opt in with that permission, the permission for communication. So really, I think as a business, then it's looking at actually where are we spending our money in terms of our communication with our existing customers as the first point. So there's a comparison with what are we spending on our mobile app, what are we spending on our website, what are we spending on our existing messaging, what are we spending on our outbound calling, depending on the nature of the business, for example, debt collections and the like, and utilities. There's an awful lot of money spent on call centers and outbound calling. So I think that's where it starts to become interesting. And Nick made a really good point there in terms of what's the nature of the traffic that's driving some of the increase in volumes for RCS right now. And there is an awful lot of pick and shift messaging. What we're doing on SMS, let's move it over. For whatever reason, it might be because we want to capitalize on logos and verification and the like. But some of it, as Nick says, is because there's cheaper options in RCS, or we want to avoid elements of fraud and the like. So when you're looking at that kind of activity, it's harder to move the conversation into where you're deriving the benefit, as kind of touched on earlier, where you're getting the benefit from the messaging. So it's less about how much that costs per message, but actually what's the outcome, what's the benefit you're achieving. So it becomes an ROI or a ROAS based conversation. Then you can actually start to benchmark against things like, what are we spending on our mobile app? How much do we get from that? What are we spending on our outbound calling? What's our cost per call and the like? So you can have real kind of value-based conversations between commensurate use cases just via different channels. And that's where I think RCS is really going to be interesting. And that's probably, kind of as Nick says, that's going to be into a later this year through 2026 kind of thing, as businesses adapt, they get through their proof of concept phase and start to adapt some of their internal processes and systems to support that. So I think that's going to be an interesting area, particularly again once what conversational looks like in terms of conversational pricing, starts to get set. And I kind of agree with Nick. However much it pains me, the US is going to be a big driver on that point for sure.
But I think on the commercial models, it's also being driven by other channels. So you've got SMS, you've got domestic and international rates, and you've got some absolutely crazy international rates, some kind of over 30 cents. Then you look at what WhatsApp are doing. You look at they've got different pricing by use case. That's something that could that then be kind of retrospectively applied to SMS potentially? Maybe something else that's starting to be looked at. But again, it's these discussions always take a long time. But if you think, kind of in terms of where WhatsApp are, they're really going after the conversational side of things based on how, the fact that chat's pretty much free for the time being. How long will that last? Who knows? But, and also utility, they're massively undercutting everything else pretty much to try and get that utility traffic, because they know that that's the traffic that's going to, kind of be very, kind of long lasting for the foreseeable future for many, many years to come. But so, is RCS pricing being dictated to by other channels in terms of other messaging channels, or should we look at what's going on in digital? Because if you look at something like mobile advertising, if you think how that model's evolved, you had, kind of in the platform, you had demand side platforms. And I remember this is something we used to talk about 15 years ago, Dave. And I know we're not old enough, but, and it's how much data do you use, to kind of then create a very kind of tailored, packaged, personalized campaign. And I guess that's also where AI, machine learning could potentially come in and really kind of help to drive that and push up engagement. But is there a cost for that? Like location-based advertising, something that targeted should come at a massive premium. So then why are we not having this kind of conversation around RCS? Because we should do. But again, I think the issue that we always have, and I've been banging on about this for years, is that we've always positioned RCS as an SMS evolution. It should be seen as kind of a digital channel that's fundamentally different from RCS, from SMS. Otherwise, in brand's mindset, if you're charging 3 cents, 2 cents, whatever for a message, why would you not do the same on RCS?
Yeah, that's
that's the problem that we're going to have for a long time.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think where, and this is the conversation we have with carriers frequently, right? Is the opportunity that they have with RCS isn't just about moving existing revenue from SMS over to RCS and in the process dropping a load of AIT, so impacting their revenues. It's actually about those other use cases. What brands are spending via other channels, be they digital or otherwise, that could be considered. So what's that net new that you could bring into what becomes then the telco bottom line? And the point about actually out of home is really interesting. You look at particularly where digital out of home is now. That's very much kind of moving at a pace, and as the ability to drive kind of P2A interactions over RCS, as that ability rolls out, that becomes really interesting, because you could be very much looking at a bundled acquisition-based pricing with a bundled digital advertising and RCS proposition. And I've got no doubt, some of our friends in the advertising industry are looking at those kind of opportunities already.
Yeah, fully expect that. Let's just switch subject ever so slightly, and we'll come back to that, or parts of that, a bit later. But Eishan, can I come to you just around let's just talk a minute. Fraud was mentioned, and the regulatory landscape for AI and for messaging generally is going to be something that we need to look at. And I think that's worth bringing into this conversation as we look at 2025 and beyond. So what's your views on that regulatory landscape impacting AI-driven messaging, and ultimately how that interacts with the consumer?
Sure. So, Nick, regulatory compliances, they kind of ensure that AI systems used for communication, they adhere to laws, ethical guidelines, industry standards, preventing, and the most important and the most crucial is the preventing breaches in the data privacy. What AI and all these technology, what it is doing is that they have humongous data, which unfortunately, if not centralized, if not, there are no enough laws are not around that, then the breach of that data is something which is of an utmost importance. So there are unethical, fraud, the maintenance of quality and integrity of AI generated content is something which is of a key driving nature. So ensuring data privacy and security is something which we need to really look at, and the regulations around accesses to data and privacy. So if I briefly remember, in 2020, IBM was the one who was strictly against facial recognition, because that was something which was taken in a little negative fashion, and they were totally against such kind of AI driven technology on facial recognition, totally off the market. So that is something which is kind of each and every organization need to think about. And what happens is that the platforms on which the AIs are being developed now, those are becoming more and more cost effective. And the simple example is the one which is the China based source, which is a DeepSeek, wherein the primary intention was that it is more cost effective than OpenAI, wherein the AI technology is being driven. But then it is, we need to segregate the commercial aspect, and we need to look at how well the regulations and the companies adhere to the privacy and security of each and every consumer, because that is the one which is making the customers connected to the organization. And if they don't have confidence in that, then it takes no time for them to get away. So that's what my view is.
Where do you think we are now, Eishan? Do you think regulation is too heavy or not heavy enough? Where do you think
it is not heavy enough? It is not heavy enough. We need to keep evolving around it. We need to, because see, the technology is evolving, the solutions are around it are evolving, and so has to be the regulations. Of course, one has to be ahead, and we need to be having that kind of foresight. But then we have to keep evolving on the regulations as well, in order to keep the customers happy and secure.
But it is obviously that fine balance between too much regulation that then stifles innovation, right?
Too much of regulations will definitely keep. We'll switch to some other technology in that case.
Yeah. And Vladimir, if I can come to you, back to you next. In terms of this kind of security and fraud prevention, we need to ensure that there's trust in what we're doing, whether it's around AI or RCS messaging, with or without AI. What innovations have you seen in this area, if anything?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that AI, from my point of view, is a very powerful tool, and I think that currently is the best available on fighting the fraud and mitigating those issues that are happening all over the place. I think that the future is definitely with AI and the machine learning and the monitoring techniques, online monitoring techniques, that the real-time monitoring, alerting, and all this all these tools that AI enables is actually something which no other technique is capable of. So I think that the essential thing here is just to educate people and the companies about the positive effect that AI has, and just try to get rid of this image of the robots and the AI just invading our lives, etc. Right? So I think that's this threat that is being seen by the just ordinary consumers of, if there's too much AI, what happens? Will that just influence the decision that the consumers are taking. So the important part here is that we need to really educate and show all the benefits that AI brings in order to mitigate all those fraudulent cases. And as Eishan mentioned, like with the regulation and the right approach, there is no risk. There is just positive effect that AI is putting on the engagement between the consumer and the brand.
Okay. And Nick, just to kind of follow on from that, how do you see it? So we look at kind of where we are today with SMS, WhatsApp, other OTT channels, RCS, etc. How do you see them coexisting when kind of AI really comes into the picture? What changes would you see?
I think the thing that's always worth noting as well is, kind of, okay, AI can help tackle fraud, but it also helps drive fraud as well. So you've got AI versus AI, and I think so the fraudsters are going to get smarter with AI. So any defense mechanism has to do the same, and that's always cat and mouse. I think that's something that we need to be wary of. But in terms of, I think, looking at various channels, it depends on how things evolve. If you look at like one-time passcodes, that is the perfect use case for SMS, but we're abusing it because of the rates. And then the AIT, the trashing, the pumping. So, we found like the ideal kind of use case for SMS. And, moving forward, in theory, what I think the industry should be doing is making sure that OTP stays on SMS for that very reason, because it's such a brilliant use case. Trouble is, because everyone's so worried about fraud, the actual use case, the version of it is actually kind of the customer experience is dropping. Like I was trying to get onto booking.com earlier, and it said we're going to email you a one-time passcode. It didn't come after half an hour, and I got a message with an OTP, so on SMS. So it's kind of what's going on with these systems. And then about an hour later, I finally got the email with a different one-time passcode on. So these things have an effect. But then when you look at something like RCS, is perfect. It's the perfect marketing channel. So again, if AI can be used to drive that engagement, to make sure that if I'm being sent a message, it's something that's specific to me. Because again, if we come back, to kind of like some of the tracking that you see with advertising these days, and so, whether you're on Facebook, Google, or whoever, it just doesn't work. It's so siloed. And you kind of think everything, the ultimate thing should be Netflix. If we can do a Netflix-like service and we access content, where we stop watching something on one device and we pick it up at the next exact spot on another device, that's the kind of like the perfect integrated model. And that's where, that's what we should be aiming at. But we're nowhere near that at the moment. And if I buy something, if I do an ad, Google something and go and buy it, I'll still get ads for that for the next couple of months. You kind of think, actually, if everything's integrated and everything's so kind of transparent, then it should know actually what, you bought shoes, now you need shoe cleaner or some laces or something, or some nice socks to go with it, and start building on that experience. That's where I think AI will really kind of help drive that consumer engagement, because it starts to understand what people have done, how they've engaged. And again, whether that is on RCS, whether it's on WhatsApp, I think there's probably certain use cases that are probably better on RCS, probably marketing, because it's probably going to offer a richer service, than WhatsApp that potentially could be more chatty. But again, also what the thing we've been talking about is obviously WhatsApp seems to be going after more the customer care space, and RCS should be going after the digital marketing space. In which case, these two channels with the kind of underpinned by SMS, maybe for one-time passcode, is how things potentially could evolve. So it's not just a case of one channel is going to succeed. It just won't happen. You look at what's happening in India, Brazil, WhatsApp, SMS, and RCS are all flourishing.
Yeah. Okay, we've only got a couple of minutes. So if I can just put you all on the spot now, and I'll just quickly go around my illustrious panelists here and ask the question, what one thing do you think the market should look out for in messaging in 2025? And I'll start with Nick, being as his mic's open.
That's not fair. What should we be looking out for? I think it's educating the marketplace. I don't just mean brands. I mean us. about kind of what we need to do to actually get things over. I think we've been repeating the same message for too long, and it's falling on deaf ears. You know, even from look at pricing, you still got operators increasing SMS rates, even though they see their traffic plummeting. So no one's learning there. So no one really understands, I think, what is the true value of SMS? What is that sweet spot? So that is, I think, should be the takeaway for this year.
Okay, thanks. That's education. Let's beat the drum. Eishan, can I come to you next?
So, Nick, as per me, how brands perceive each channel is something which will be of an interest. Everybody has seen the effects of A2P SMS. Now, how are they perceiving the RCS or any other channel is something which will be of an interest. And the shift in behavior is something we need to keep a lookout at.
Great. So it is evolving rapidly. Dave, come to you next.
Yeah, and I'll kind of answer with my very kind of RCS hat on. I think, and it was kind of referenced earlier, I think regulation and compliance is going to be a really interesting point. I think to date, RCS has maybe flown under the radar a little bit. There's been a lot of, well, what you do for SMS is okay for RCS. That position has carried forwards, but I don't think that's a sustainable position in the long term for all the reasons we've been talking about in terms of the integration of AI and different use cases and the like. I think there's going to be a number of regulators, governmental or otherwise, that start to look at the channel and think, right, how do we need to make sure we apply the right level of control and compliance to it? And so I think that's going to be, whilst I totally agree with the kind of the rhetoric we've talked about thus far, that the growth through this year and on to next year is, I strongly feel, is going to accelerate. But one of the dampening factors will probably be the degree of how we need to adjust and adapt for compliance. I think that's a good thing longer term. Absolutely, it's needed because I think it reinforces the benefits of the channel. But it's something that we're going to have to address.
Great. So compliance regulation. Thank you very much, Dave. And Vladimir.
Well, I agree with my colleagues on this panel, of course, about most of these things are important. But what I can add is probably security, right? So we need to, the brands should think of implementing certain levels of new levels of security, AI driven, or at least something, because in the end of the day, what is important for us and for the industry is that the channels are actually being used, and there is a trust in those channels that the experience and the users are safe while using the channels. Well, that's my point.
Great. Thank you very much, Vladimir. So we need to wrap up now, but just final word, just to summarize in a few words. I think we're talking AI, messaging, RCS. It's around speed, accuracy, cost, the reach, onboarding and integration, and then around regulation, security. And I think the final word is trust, that we should all remember. So I really enjoyed that one. Thank you very much, everybody. Really appreciate you joining today. Hopefully the audience got a lot out of that. We've got a couple of questions, but we'll have to come back to those offline, I'm afraid. Okay, so thank you. On to the next session, I think.